And we're into week 14. Rivalry week was last week. And you know what? There were some upsets, as we saw. The playoff picture got a little bit clearer, mainly for the top three, as we see. But here's the big question. Who's number 4? Well, as we know, Georgia's number 4 right now. How long is that going to last? We're going to find out what our experts think this week. But first, let's go back to our week 13 picks. And as you know, we did one large contest. We combined the prize pool, and you're who's going to be the winners later on. But we had 10 games. And our first game was Oklahoma Sooners go to West Virginia, Morgantown. And you know what? 59-56, Oklahoma wins. Will Greer couldn't come up with it. Mark, talk to us.
It was a video game. These teams put over almost 1,400 yards on the board. But the reason why Oklahoma won, here's the key. They were able to run the football. They rushed for over 300 yards in this game. They were balanced on offense, threw for over 300 yards. Kyler Murray ran for 114 yards and a touchdown. I thought that was key to keep those possessions away from West Virginia. It came down to the end. Everybody's talking about how bad this Oklahoma defense is. Guess what? Ruffin McNeil's defense bailed them out, Coach, because they scored not once, but twice on defense to seal a victory.
Yeah, because West Virginia gave them the ball. I mean, they gave up 704 yards. I know Alabama gained 683, but I'll tell you what, Mark, it's hard for me to sit there and watch defenses play like that. But Oklahoma's a very talented football team. I'll tell you, Brooks ran for almost 200 yards. Of course, Kyler Murray had a great day. No doubt about it. Oklahoma was a better football team, but I agree with you, Mark. They don't get the 2 defensive touchdowns. Maybe they don't win. But unfortunately for West Virginia, Oklahoma did survive.
Mark, as you said, week 1, the Mountaineers have a habit of disappointing. We'll see, will Dana Holgorsen be around much longer? Our second game, the Apple Cup. This was for the Pac-12 North title. 28-15, the Huskies won. And you know what? The Huskies won with defense because the number 1 offense in the country with Gardner Minshew had 152 yards passing. That's it. They ran the ball, and as Coach you often said, Chris Peterson, you need to make them have fun again and run some trick plays. They did a little bit of that. Mark.
I love their defense. Jimmy Lake, their defensive coordinator, I said this was one of the top defenses in the country when they play up to their standards, and they finally did. They're the best in the Pac-12, particularly their secondary, and they just shut down this offense for Washington State. They couldn't run it. They couldn't throw it. This is the fewest yards Gardner Minshew has had this season, 152. Didn't have a touchdown pass, threw 2 interceptions, but I thought the key was Myles Gaskin, Coach. This is a running back that not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 consecutive 1,000-yard rushing seasons, the only one in Pac-12 history to ever do that.
It was a tremendous performance by Myles Gaskin. But also, Coach Peterson pulled out some trick plays, halfback pass, things like that, which he hadn't been doing.
He finally listened to you.
But here's what's really amazing about this. 4.7 yards per pass. But it was snowy. The field wasn't very, very good. It wasn't good conditions to throw the football. But nevertheless, for 5 straight years, Peterson has beaten Washington State by double digits each and every time. I did not think that would be possible this year, but let's give an awful lot of credit to the quarterback and to Gaskin and to the defense. Great win for Washington. Now they're going to have a replay against Utah in the championship game. But unbelievable. 4.7 yards per pass against Washington State. Doesn't happen very often.
Well, that was the exciting Apple Cup. But the Iron Bowl down in Tuscaloosa, it was close for a little bit, 17-14 at half, but third quarter, Tua Tagovailoa, 4 touchdown passes in the third quarter. So what's Alabama getting ready to play in this SEC championship game? Auburn getting ready to listen to all the grumbling once again down on the plains. Mark.
I'll tell you what, Tua is amazing. This kid threw for 5 touchdown passes, ran for 1. And here's the key in this game, Coach. Every time you think that somebody's going to be close to this football team, Alabama, it's almost like they turn the volume up when they want to. They step on the gas. They were able to do it in the second half. The defense was outstanding in the second half, putting pressure on the Auburn offense. They came with a better blitz package in the second half. But I thought the way that Tua distributed the football, Henry Ruggs III, Jerry Jeudy, he threw it to like 8 different players on this football team, and the Auburn defense couldn't keep pace with this Alabama offense. I look at this Alabama offense. They're so balanced and they're so smart. And this is another game where they didn't have a penalty. They're playing top-notch football.
Oh, no doubt. They had over 500 yards to 283 yards for Auburn. Alabama is an outstanding football team. Everybody knows that. I did not think this would be much of a game, and it really wasn't. Alabama's just awfully, awfully good. But I'm anxious to talk about their game against Georgia, because remember this, our top 4 final picks on the first show, I got 3 of the 4 are still there. Notre Dame, Clemson, and Georgia. I don't know what happened to Washington in your picks and some other ones, but Alabama might be the best football team, Mark. I got
to go back and talk about Alabama. I said Alabama, no penalties, no turnovers for Alabama again.
Okay. Well, Alabama might be the best football team I've ever seen, and I'm an old man.
Wow, that's a statement. This is the best offense I've seen Nick Saban ever have, and he may have the best team that he's ever had, because you just can't stop him. You know, it's like throwing popcorn at a battleship. You can't slow this offense down.
No,
Well, and the defense showed up too, gentlemen, especially against the offensive genius down on the Plains. But Mark, you said a magnificent quarterback, an outstanding quarterback. Our next game had an outstanding quarterback, and his team was a 4-point underdog. And I'm talking about Michigan played at Ohio State, and Dwayne Haskins showed he can play with just about anybody. And when it comes to quarterbacks, 62-39, I think Urban Meyer owns Jim Harbaugh, but this was not close. Mark.
The 2 worst performances in the Big Ten this year was when Ohio State lost at Purdue by 29 points, and this one where Michigan got upset and barely embarrassed nationally. They couldn't do anything right, Coach. They had a punt block. They couldn't run the football. They ran the ball effectively a little bit in the first half. They got the momentum just before halftime where they scored a touchdown. They had a muff return kickoff where they recovered the ball, got another score. So what happens with about a minute to go? They let Ohio State march down the field, kick a field goal to go into halftime, and guess what? They got the momentum back. In the second half, they couldn't stop this Ohio State passing game because, 1, they couldn't cover the backside of the backfield, and 2, number 28 for the defense for Michigan. I'll tell you one thing, this offense for Ohio State found the weakest link on this football team, went after him again and again and again, and they made no defensive changes on the defensive side of the ball for Michigan.
Well, if you remember, Michigan beat Penn State like 55-7 or something like that this year. I'd have to put that down as a little disappointed. I was surprised that Ohio State dominated this game. You know, the number 1 defense in the country, they had 567 yards, passed for like 396 yards. Haskins did a tremendous job. But what really amazed me, they averaged 4.8 yards per rush, Mark, against an outstanding defensive team. I thought maybe they could throw some, and they did throw very, very effectively. I did not expect them to be able to run as well, and Weber had an outstanding day, almost 100 yards against a great defensive team like Michigan. But the thing was that Michigan could not keep up with the speed of the Ohio State receivers. They ran a lot of crossing routes, and it just became a 40-yard dash, and Ohio State won it, caught the pass. It was a dominating game. Now, it really makes it interesting because Ohio State put themselves back in playoff consideration again.
I thought the key in this game was, 1, the speed of Ohio State really stood out to me over Michigan, particularly on the perimeter. The other thing is the first drive of the football game. Michigan takes the drive. They go 8 yards on the first play. They take Higdon out of the game. They drop back for a pass and get sacked. From that point on, it was almost downhill. You just saw the guys just like their shoulders shrugged down, their body position shrugged down. I'm like, just stay with the run. At least you'll make it a competitive game. And they just got behind, and they just had to throw the ball against Ohio's defense and just couldn't get it done. Ohio State, it was a brilliant game plan by Ohio State.
But Michigan did put 38 points on the board, and that was impressive. Once again, Ohio State's defense has some vulnerability. But I tell you, you can't give Haskins enough credit. This young man impresses me each and every week. He is in the same classification as Murray and Tua from Alabama. They're 3 great quarterbacks in college football today.
Yep.
Well, and don't forget that Ohio State offensive line on Saturday. You watch that game. Dwayne Haskins had a lot of time. But our 5th game was Notre Dame. They've got 1 hurdle left to get to the golden road to the playoff, and it was at USC. And you know what? They were down at the half. But Ian Book, Dexter Williams made some plays. 24-17. They've secured a spot in the college football playoff. Coach, you called that. But Mark, I'm going to give you first dibs on this one.
Hey, Coach, were you like sweating just a little bit at halftime when Notre Dame was down? When USC went up 10-0 in this football game? You were a little bit nervous about that? Because it looked like USC was going to be dominant in this game until after halftime. I'll tell you one thing, you're lucky that USC turned it over twice in the red zone, because right now we'd be looking at a 1-loss Notre Dame football team. Notre Dame came back and battled back in the second half, and they made plays defensively and on the offensive side of the ball and got the job done. But it was a lot closer than the experts thought.
For a team that ended up 5-7, I thought Southern Cal played an excellent football game. When you look at it, Southern Cal could not get the big play. Notre Dame did. They had one run over 50 yards for a touchdown. They had one pass over 50 yards for a touchdown. And you are right. The receivers fumbled twice deep into Notre Dame's territory. But it was an outstanding game, but it was one of those games that great football teams find a way to win. It was a very even game if you look at the statistics, yards gained, yards passed, yards rushed. But Notre Dame once again found a way to win because they get the big plays. And this is the thing that people don't understand. Notre Dame is in the same classification as Clemson and Alabama in this respect. They're a complete football team. They have an outstanding defense. They have a great offensive line. They have an excellent quarterback. They got a great running back, and they have fine receivers, and they got the best punter and place kicker, both seniors, both outstanding. Notre Dame does not have a weak spot, which is why they're one of the four teams and why they have a chance to go all the way, as I picked them early in the year to win it all.
And they've also found a way to rig the system. They don't have to go to the 13th data point. While everybody's be playing in championship games, they're going to be sitting home and watching. That's not fair.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, the reason we don't have a 13th game was Kent State wasn't available to play us.
Well, gentlemen, there you have it. But you think about old USC, Clay Helton, he still keeps his job. Valiant effort will do that. But also, with our first 5 games that we just had, Coach, you picked 3 winners. Mark, you picked 4 winners. And I have to note, Mark, 31-point spread against Alabama. It was a 31-point spread. Solid work. But gentlemen, what I want to talk about right now is I'm going to go back and look at our second 5 games for this large grand prize contest that we have. But first, we're going to take a little break. Stay with us. Now let's look at the second half of our Rivalry Week contest. Now, we had 5 more games, and I'm going to tell you, this one's tough. I'm going to start right off. Kentucky at Louisville. And you know what? Kentucky's built the program. Louisville's program, it was ugly. It's not good right now. 56-10 in the Governor's Cup. Mark, please just go quickly.
We'll go quickly on this one. This one was called before it even started. This is a game that I say, you know what? This looks like one of the better offensive performances for this Louisville team, over 300 yards rushing, 2 backs over 100 yards. Then I looked at the opponent. Louisville threw up the white flag weeks ago, but still they got the job done. And if you look at Terry Wilson the last couple of weeks, I think 3 out of the last 4 games he's thrown for over 200 yards. So they are going in the right direction, but it was against a team that didn't even want to play in the game.
Well, it's amazing. Here's a guy who threw for 18 yards in one game, and now he throws for 267, plus he runs for another touchdown, threw for 3 touchdowns. In a rivalry game, unfortunately, Louisville did not compete particularly on defense.
Well, as we know, Kentucky awaits the bowl game. Which bowl game are they going to get? And it's going to be good because Big Blue travels. Louisville awaits a new coach, some discipline, and Coach will make sure we send them our Dr. Lou, who talks about how to play some defense. But we go out to Arizona for a territorial cup, and Arizona needed 1 win for a bowl game against their rival. I mean, can't write this script up. But Herm Edwards and his Sun Devils said, I'm going to end the season on a high note, and we're going to get to a better bowl game. 41-40. Talk to us, Mark. You live there.
Yeah, you know, this team was down by 19 points in the fourth quarter, and if you left the game and went to a restaurant with like 3 minutes to go, you probably missed the best part of this football game. But if you look at what Arizona State was able to do to put up 20 points in that fourth quarter, get some turnovers and capitalize on Arizona's mistakes, that was the key of this game. And I thought here was the big thing. If you watched Herm Edwards on the sidelines, cool hand Herm, didn't panic, didn't yell at players, didn't do anything, just stayed the path, and his players played that same way, and they played to the final bell and the final whistle, Coach. That's why they won this football game. They were aggressive at the end. Things fell their way. The ball bounced their way when they needed it. That's how they won this football game, with a determination and a team that didn't give up when they were down 19 points in the fourth quarter. You're
partially right, Mark. You're also partially wrong. Arizona State did not win this football game. Arizona lost the football game by turning the ball over, plus Arizona missed a field goal on the last play of the game. They make the field goal. They're going to a bowl. They celebrate. How disappointing it must be to have a 19-point lead and blow it and then miss a field goal and not be able to go to a bowl, and you did it to your arch rival. Congratulations, Arizona State, but I feel sorry for Arizona because they beat themselves.
I told you don't count on kickers. Throughout the season, you're giving attaboys to kickers. This is one time where you don't give one to a kicker.
That's why you do it, Mark, because when they do come through, he's the eraser, and obviously how disappointing it is. But it was a great effort by Arizona, and an outstanding game. Anytime 41-40, I guarantee you, the basketball teams will score many more points than that when they play this year.
Gentlemen, I don't think it's the last time we hear from these two first-year coaches. And Kevin, someone will get those boys on a roll. But our next game, Utah State at Boise State. It was a Mountain Division Championship of the Mountain West Conference. That's what it was. Playing the game to who's going to go and pretty much host the Mountain West Championship. Boise State, Utah State. Boise State, once again, wins on that blue turf. 33-24. Brett Rippon and those boys they prove it's tough to beat us at home. Mark.
I'll tell you what, Brian Harsin, their head coach, has done a terrific job the second half of this season. The reason why is they started off 3-2 early. They've won their last 7 consecutive games. This is where they are right now. Alexander Madison, with running back, did a terrific job. He had 200 yards on 37 carries. They just wore out Utah State throughout this game, and particularly at the end when they had to have it. And they snapped Utah State's 10-game winning streak. I thought it was a terrific job by this coaching staff and this quarterback in Brett Rippon. I've been talking about him all season long. He's the Mountain West all-time passing leader. He got it done for this football team, but it was the offensive line and running attack that got it done for Boise State.
Now, this is a different Boise State team than we saw in the third or fourth week of the season. They've really gotten better, and now they get a chance to play Fresno State for the championship. They just beat Fresno State a couple of weeks ago. Now they're going to play again. If something happens to UCF, and UCF loses their game against Memphis, and Boise State beats Fresno State again, Boise State may end up in the major bowl and not UCF. Even though they have 2 losses right now, they're playing as well as anybody.
Yep, because it goes to the highest ranked conference champion.
Yes.
Well, as we know, we'll talk later about the implications across the board for them. But you take our next game, LSU at Texas A&M. Now, think it's a basketball score. Coach, we've talked about this. 74-72 in 7 overtimes. Joe Burrow ran for 6 touchdowns. Kellen Mond, you know what? The guy made plays. Now, some people think that the 12th man was wearing a striped shirt, but in either way, Jimbo Fisher got Texas A&M back to what they're used to being, and that's 8-4. Mark,
This was Big 12 football, brother. This is what it is for the Big 12. This is the SEC turning into the Big 12, throwing up almost 150 points in the game. And not only that, Kellen Mond was spectacular. What I'm worried about is Coach Orgeron. They gave him the Gatorade bath. They thought the game was over. Then they pulled it back. Then they had to go to overtime. The thing that I'm worried about these kids, they're lucky they don't have to play a game in a championship game this week because it was like playing 2 games on one day. For 7 overtimes to do this, but the resiliency of this football team with Texas A&M, in the past, they would have just thrown up the flag and just said, forget about it, we're out of here, because LSU's owned them year after year after year, but under Jimbo Fisher, they never gave up, they kept fighting, and they found a way to win.
Congratulations, A&M was a great win. But I got to tell you, I'm sitting there, and the game's over. I mean, the guy throws the ball, it's intercepted by LSU, but a good call. His knee was down. They get another play to go. They complete a pass. Now, here's the thing. When I was coaching, they told me it would take 3 seconds to down the ball. Anytime you down the ball, automatically 3 seconds go out. There were 3 seconds on the thing, but they're playing A&M. There's 1 second left. They throw a pass, that's a touchdown. Now we go to overtime. And I tell you what, Mark, the 2-point conversion on Pat was incomplete by A&M. They ruled it was pass interference on Greedy Williams. I could not believe that call. I mean, that was a fictitious call, as I thought. But great football game. I just hate to see overtime go to 7 or 8 like it did this time. But fun time. It wasn't over to quarter of 1. I got to tell you, I watched every second of it.
I wish you get this passionate about those home calls that Notre Dame gets when they're playing in their stadium against the opponent.
They don't get home calls, Mark. They get correct calls. There's a difference between home calls and correct calls, and you get that confused, Mark.
I heard a rumor that there might have been a guy in a striped shirt with some riding boots on, but who knows? Our next game, and this probably isn't a surprise, but we'll see how it affects the team as they go to the next week. Georgia Tech at Georgia, and as we know, Paul Johnson's triple option cannot play from behind. 45-21, the Bulldogs win. They take care of business. Next up, Alabama, an hour from campus. Mark.
If you look at the running backs, Elijah Holyfield and DeAndre Swift, we knew that they were going to run the ball effectively, almost 180 yards or 185 yards between them. But I thought it was Jake Fromm that was really effective in this game, throwing for a career-high 4 touchdown passes. I talked about it before the game that he would be instrumental in this game because Georgia can throw the football. Georgia Tech cannot. Once you get in a situation when you're ahead on Georgia Tech, they can't throw the football to catch up. They can't just keep running it. It's just not going to happen. Georgia has too many better athletes than Georgia Tech.
Georgia was at 45-7 this game. I know it ended up 45-21, but one time it was 45-7. But you can look at a variety of things. Georgia Tech was playing very, very well the last half of the season, but they were held to 2.7 yards per rush against Georgia. A wishbone, I mean, that just doesn't happen. 2.7, that was impressive to me.
Yeah.
I think Georgia has a chance against Alabama if their defense continues to play the way they are at the present time.
Well, Coach, that sums it up, and guess what? Coach, you were 3 for those 5, and Mark, you were 4 for those 5 for this week. Coach, you were 6 for 10. Mark, you were 8 for 10. How about that when it comes to picking winners?
I am not letting my wife pick my selections any longer. I mean, this first week I let her pick them, and she fouled me up.
Well, take the dartboard down out of the den.